Welcome, Slayer, the Alchemist, and welcome to another edition of Sabbath Sunday. This is where Darren and I get together with you on Sundays to talk all things Black Sabbath. And for today's episode, we are sharing with you our 5 favorite Bill Ward songs. These are not necessarily songs that Bill wrote or sang on or anything, but these are songs that have our favorite Bill Ward moments in them. So, all right, Darren, you're a drummer, I'm a bass player. What is it about Bill Ward did you think makes him special?
I like the way he approaches the music. And some of it is because I've read interviews with him and I've heard him speak about how he plays, and I really appreciate that he calls himself a reactionary drummer. He's not stiff. It's spirited. It comes from the heart. And I like that he considers what he does as reacting to the music. You know, he plays spontaneously, and you can hear that sometimes in different performances from the different tours. Like, he doesn't always play the songs exactly the way that he recorded them. I mean, certain fills are on point, but sometimes you can hear he just goes for it. So I think that's what I like about Bill Ward. And I also think he was an innovator, right? In that way that he approached his playing. I think he was innovative, and there was other players that certainly were similar, Mitch Mitchell and Ginger Baker, but for heavy metal, Bill Ward is, I think, the quintessential drummer. And we throw quintessential around a lot when we talk about Black Sabbath, but they're that kind of band. They have quintessential musicians. Geezer Butler is, to me, the quintessential bass player. Tony Iommi with his riffs, the quintessential heavy metal guitar player, and likewise Bill Ward is the quintessential heavy metal drummer. So that's, for me personally, what I find so fascinating and what endears me to Bill Ward and his playing. But when I compiled, I kept it at 5 songs. I'm not sure how many you have.
Yep, 5.
5. So obviously I'm drawing from the classic Ozzy era. I didn't really pull anything off of Heaven and Hell, because Heaven and Hell, I don't think he was really into it. His head wasn't in it. His head and his heart really weren't in the game. I mean, he's talked about that plenty of times, so we know. Also, the production doesn't do him any favors in that. But I'm going to start off at number 5 with Swinging the Chain for Bill Ward. This is the second song in the classic Ozzy era, if you want to call it that, classic 70s era, that Bill Ward sings lead vocals. I love Technical Ecstasy. We've talked about that a whole bunch of times. I usually figure out a way to bring it up in just about every video we do. But It's All Right is a cool song. It has a lot of charm and character, but it's somewhat subdued. It shows a different side to Sabbath, which I think is really interesting, and I like it a lot. But on Swinging the Chain, Bill Ward is a lot more confident. He's more assertive with his vocals. I like the sound of his voice. It's not just the token or the thing that, oh, the drummer's singing. He's actually putting in a really good vocal performance, and in some ways kind of stronger than some of Ozzy's moments on the album. So I like Swinging the Chain a lot. It's unfortunate that it comes after that instrumental breakout, because I don't think it gets set up really well. But Swinging the Chain, I don't know, I'm not sure what he's singing about. And that's another cool thing about Bill Ward. When he writes lyrics, I mean, he's like deep in like this thought process that only Bill Ward knows what he's talking about. You know it's profound, and you know it's deep, and the lyrics in Swinging the Chain are somewhere in Bill's head, and it makes total sense, and it's really profound. But I'm not sure what he's singing about, but it's pretty cool. The words he uses, the phrases he uses are pretty cool, and the way that he delivers the lyrics, he's got me. So Swinging the Chain, don't notice the drums too much in it. The drums are kind of a little bit more laid back in that, I think. But yeah, so as far as, if we're just talking about Bill Ward moments, this is one where it's about Bill Ward's lead vocals for me, Swinging the Chain.
Okay, good pick. I didn't go with any of Bill's vocals. I stuck with his stuff around his drumming. And just to echo some of the things that you said, what I like about Bill's drumming, and when we decided to do this topic, as I was listening to the Sabbath songs and really focusing in on drums. I've done that before, but doing it again, it made me realize how he really adds things to the songs. Like, rather than just playing a straight beat or something like that, you can tell that he's really listening to the songs and he's trying to contribute something. I mean, there's times where he's playing what
Yeah.
you might consider to be a standard type of drum thing, but a lot of times he adds little things that if you took them out of the song, it wouldn't be the same. You know, the
Yeah.
drum parts are as important to the song as the bass line or the guitar part or something. If you were to take it out, it would really you would miss it and it wouldn't sound right. So my number 5 is Johnny Blade. I love the way, after the keyboard intro, the way he's doing like that fast
Yeah.
kind of snare thing, and the part in the song where it goes a da 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 da, and he's doing like all these big long drum fills, and then it
Yeah.
comes out into that other section. Ba da 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 da. He's like the king of. And the band in general, they do this a lot. And the more I think about it, the more I become aware of how often they do this during this classic era of coming from one feel and just moving right into another one like effortlessly. And that's kind of a good example of that. You know, they're coming out of the da 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 da, and then ba da da ba ba, you know, almost like a funky like drum part, you know. And I just think with that intro thing that he's playing, that fast kind of snare thing that he down, bum 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 bum. If he was just bum 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 bum, if he was just playing like a 4 on the floor type of thing, it wouldn't have been the same. You know, it's really it adds a very unique thing to it. And Bill is the king of setting up. And I'm going to talk more about that as we go through these songs. You know, he does a really good job of like leading one section into another section. So Johnny Blade, I always felt like, you know, I think we talked about this in the podcast with Never Say Die. It really felt like Bill was trying as hard as he could to keep the band together, to put everything he could into it, to keep, you know, that album, for those who may not know, was difficult for them to put together. Ozzy leaves, he comes back, they had a different singer. Ozzy doesn't want to sing his lyrics. They're in Canada, they're freezing. It's like they only have a couple days to cramped time. And it just seemed like Bill really put his heart into it. And when I hear Johnny Blade, when I hear Johnny Blade, it just sounds like Bill just putting it all out there, you know, putting everything he can into the song. So that's my number 5, Johnny Blade.
Yeah, that's a great pick. I mean, we could probably spend 8 hours talking about Bill Ward. Now that I think about it, there's so many things that I thought of as you were talking about him. But I think we were talking about in on one of our videos, maybe a couple videos back, when we were talking about the quintessential what we consider to be the quintessential Black Sabbath album. I picked Master Reality, and we got off on a thing where we were talking about how essential Bill Ward is to making that album as special as it is. And it's because when you have these organic changes that seem like they're driven almost telekinetically, you know, he seems to be conducting those or leading those. He's like he's directing some of those changes. And yeah, I mean, he's brilliant at that. And there's a lot of moments when that occurs. And if you can recognize that, then you know, it's one of the things that I think that you enjoy about the song. It's the different changes and how there's unexpected twists and turns in some of the songs, especially like in the first 6 albums. And a lot of that, I think, is, if you didn't have a drummer as capable as Bill, I don't think they would have been able to do that. Or maybe it wouldn't sound, maybe if they did, it wouldn't sound as good or wouldn't be as smooth. So, yeah. But for my number 4, talking about changes and stops and starts and things like that. Um, my number 4 pick is The Wizard. I love the way that Bill approaches that song. It's busy, but it's really organized. It's an active song drumming wise, but it's like it really it captures your attention, and I love that. And you probably noticed it too. I think there's probably a lot of people that have noticed it. There's that stray random cowbell.
I was
You
just
know what I'm
thinking of
talking
that.
about? It's like the first time I heard it, I'm like, whoa, whoa, what was that? And
Yeah, there's like
it's
one
random.
cowbell hit in the middle of all this
Yeah,
stuff.
and I'd like to think that he did it intentionally, that he just like plotted that all out and it was part of his pattern. But I almost think that he was just going for it and he was in the moment and he was just like reacting to the music and just there it was, boom, he hits it and then goes back into his beat. But I love the funky nature of the beat. I don't think it's jazzy. I think a lot of the stuff on the first 2 albums had kind of drew from a jazzy uh, type of feeling. But I that to me that the way that he plays the wizard, I think, is seems to be more of a funk type of thing with a lot of the stop and starts and I love how he throws in the triplets and they're right on time and yeah, he's really going for it. And I really appreciate that because you know he could just kind of like put in a more pedestrian and the song itself, the riff, it's interesting enough to that it could be just as successful with a more moderate or more pedestrian type of drum beat. But I mean, he's really going for it, and it's really busy and it's active and it's pretty cool. So number 4 for me is The Wizard.
Yeah, that's a great pick. That almost made my list. And I've always loved his drum sound on that first record. It's very open, it's very kind of reverby, bright. You can really hear the cymbals and everything. So, but my number 4 is you had mentioned Heaven and Hell, and we had a discussion on the podcast, and I made a comment that it doesn't even sound like Bill is on this record to me. It doesn't sound like the Bill Ward that was on Never Say Die. You disagreed with me. You said, you know, you felt like you could hear Bill in there. And my pick is Lonely is the Word. And I think that Lonely is the Word, and you just mentioned it a few minutes ago, that maybe Bill wasn't 100% engaged in that lineup of the band. He was missing Ozzy. He was dealing with substance abuse issues and everything. So maybe he wasn't 100% engaged. But on Lonely is the Word, it sounds to me like that was maybe what Bill needed from all the other songs, that connected with him in some way, maybe in a way that it could have been on one of the older records. And it's again another example like that first verse. It's a long, he's playing like boom, boom. He's not playing a steady beat. He's playing like this sort of percussive beat thing. And it's just so different. And like, you know, I'm not a drummer, but it's just seems creative to me that he would have thought this instead of just playing like a standard keeping time type of beat. He's playing like this sort of pattern around the kit. So then when it kicks into the chorus, Lonely is, it sort of opens up more. And he sets up this really nice fill right before the guitar solo, do, 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 bo, bo, when the guitar solo sort of gets mellow there. And it just feels like he's really feeling that. And on the outro, there is this super cool, right as the song's almost completely faded out, he does this like over the mountain type of like, you know, drum fill that he does right as the song's going out. And it's subtle what he does, like underneath the guitar solo. His fills are very restrained in it, but I don't know, there's just something about that drum part. Everything else on the record, I kind of feel like, man, it's this, you know, it doesn't sound like Bill Ward to me, but that song sounds like Bill Ward. It sounds like the Bill Ward of old, with that verse. He's orchestrating the verse and he's setting up the guitar solo with that nice fill. And he's in the solo part where Tony's really mellow and playing all those like kind of single note thing. Bill's like just really underneath him. And then when it builds up, you know, and the guitar solo gets big, Bill gets big with it. You know, it's just a drum song from him that I always really liked.
Yeah, I mean, he gets kind of emotional, and you're right. There's some songs you could tell he just there's a disconnect, like Lady Evil or Wishing Well.
Mhm.
Those aren't really traditional Sabbath songs. It's something that was unique to that feeling. Those songs are unique to that lineup of the band, and so is Children of the Sea for that matter. And but there's other things that do kind of uh, have relevance to some of the things that they've done in previous albums. And Lonely as a Word is, I think, I agree, is one of those songs that does have a traditional Black Sabbath sensibility, and I think that's why he's able to connect with it and put in a good performance. I think overall, I don't think there's a song on Heaven and Hell that Bill Ward turns in a particularly bad performance. Some of it's a little bit cold, where you can feel maybe he's not really reacting the way on certain songs that he would if he could connect with the song better. But it's like I said a few minutes ago, a lot of it has to do with the production. I mean, Martin Birch didn't do Bill Ward any favors on the production on Heaven and Hell. I like overall, I mean, I like the production on Heaven and Hell, but I think that Bill Ward is curiously low in the mix. And maybe there's a reason for that. I guess at this point we'll never know. But yeah, Lonely as a Word, that's definitely one of the takeaway better Bill Ward performances on that album. I agree with that. So number 3, I'm going to go with Rat Salad. It's kind of an
Mhm.
obvious choice. I mean, Bill Ward's all over that, but I love the fact that it sounds so spontaneous. Like they gave him a riff, and then maybe somebody said, "All right, Bill, we don't really have, we need another song. I've got a riff. Just go off, do something, play the drums, do a drum solo." And it sounds so spontaneous. It's unscripted, and you can kind of hear. I'm pretty sure. Excuse me. Pretty sure at least twice he hits the mic. You can hear that little click, but it's only because he's just going for it that he's, it's not something that he's practiced a million times and he knows exactly what drum he's going to hit and how he's going to hit it. He's just all over the place, and it sounds so spontaneous, and I appreciate that, because it's like when you're listening to that song, when you listen to that album, especially Bill Ward's playing on the entire album, it feels like you're listening to something that was unique in that studio at that time. And it's kind of cool because it's like it's like you have a peek into Black Sabbath history and what was going on in that room when they were recording, and things that were never done ever again the exact same way. And you definitely hear that on Rat Salad. I think, venture to say, well, certainly not now at Bill's age or taking his health into consideration, but maybe, like, you could even say, like, maybe a year or maybe even a couple months or maybe a couple hours after he played that song, if you asked him to play it exactly the same way, I don't think he'd be able to. I just love the spontaneity of it. I
Yeah.
think it's really cool. So Rat Salad for me, number 3.
Yeah, good pick. Spoiler alert, I didn't put Rat Salad on my list, and it seemed like an obvious one, but I wanted my list leaned more towards Bill inside a song, and Rat Salad is certainly, I mean, it's the biggest showcase. It's a drum showcase. It's Moby Dick, it's
Right.
Toad, it's for Black
Right.
Sabbath, for Bill Ward, that's his song, but I didn't go with that one. But it's an obviously great choice because it's all about Bill in that one. But my third pick is from Technical Ecstasy, and it's Gypsy.
Yeah.
This is another one where you think of that drum intro.
And the timbales. Yeah.
Yeah, it totally sets up that whole intro. And when the song goes into the she took my body, then she did in my mind, do 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 do, and he's doing like
Yeah.
some things around the toms and everything like that. And when it breaks out, so you wanna be a gypsy, again, another song that has so many different moods and changes to it. And Bill is
Very
just sort of
cinematic.
setting up, each section has kind of a little bit of a different thing going on, and the way he sets it up, it's just crucial to each one of those sections. He gives each section its own special attention, or whatever, so that the song, has these different movements to it. And the drum intro, again, it's sort of a great thing. If you took that drum intro out, and it's just kind of a strange, again, it just shows that Bill was thinking more like orchestrally. He says that a lot. He's like more of a reactionary and orchestral drummer. Like he views the drum kit like a more like percussion section in an orchestra. He's dealing with sounds, and I think that intro is a good example of him approaching the drum set from a more sonic side rather than just keeping time. He's sonically adding something to that intro. So
Well, that song has a real cinematic feel to it with the changes and the keyboards and the overall production value. It definitely has like almost like plays out like a movie in your head, which is unique to Black Sabbath up until that point. I'm not sure if that's timbales. I said timbales. I know he uses timbales in Children of the Grave, and I didn't take Children of the Grave, but um, it almost sounds like now that I'm thinking about it, it sounds like a marching band, like those marching
yeah,
band drums, and it's the same sort of pattern that you would hear like
yeah,
in a
like a
marching
drum
band
rudiment thing that he's
situation.
playing
Yeah,
across.
the
I
kind
think.
of rudiment that a marching band drummer would play. But very cool. Yeah, I mean, he kind of just went for that. It's not something that the music where he was playing to the music. It's before the music really starts. I mean, Naomi's hitting some chords and going along with Bill, but it seemed pretty likely based on what he's doing that Bill probably just started out doing that and then provided that as the intro to the song, and then it went from there. So yeah, that almost made my list too, but it didn't. I mean, I had to narrow it down to 5, and so close, but didn't quite make the cut. But number 2 for me is Symptom of the Universe. I love Bill's those just again like Rat Salad, the going for it nature of those fills between the
Mhm.
verses, and you notice there's a marked difference in the way that there's the break after the first verse, there's the break after the second verse, and then it kind of starts to run out of steam, and he winds down a little bit, and it goes from just the frenetic, very active, snare, tom, rolls and things. He's just going for it. He's feeling it. He's got the adrenaline. You can almost, it's almost contagious when you listen to the song and you hear those fills, and it's like tense. Like you want to hit something too. But then as the song goes on, he kind of rolls off of it a little bit, and it's like it resorts to the boom, 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 boom,
Yeah.
boom, like kicks back into the main riff again. But kudos for like the first 3 breaks between the verses, because I mean he's just like going for it,
Yeah.
and I mean they're pretty incredible. When you see, I think the only time that I've ever seen any video footage of him playing Symphony of the Universe, of course, was on Never Say Die live at the Hammersmith.
Yeah.
It's pretty pedestrian by comparison, but I mean, he's got that huge drum set, and it's
Yeah.
like got drums like from probably like 10 different kits, and they're all different sizes and shapes, and there's all this unorthodox setup, but I mean he's going for it. I mean, he seems to know exactly where each one is, and he hits them in exactly the pattern that he wants to he wants to the point he wants to get across with this percussion. And that's what I love about Bill. He's like he's like this ragtag guy, but man, so much energy, so much heart and soul in his playing. It's pretty incredible, and a lot of that is in those fills between the verses, the Symphony of the Universe. So
Yeah.
that made my list number 2, pretty high.
All right. Well, that's my number 2 also. This is, I think, if after Rat Salad, maybe this is one that people, when they think of Bill Ward, they think of this because of those big, huge drum fills. And like you, I always think of that Never Say Die video where he's got the beard, and when he's playing those fills, he's like almost up on the edge of his seat. His
Yeah,
mouth is kind of open, and he's a little overweight in the video.
yeah,
I can't remember if I don't think he has a shirt on, and he's just
yeah,
like, he's got a bandana around his head, I think, and he's
yeah,
just going for it there with those. And he's got that white drum set, like you said,
yeah.
it's got all those pieces to it. And But yeah, it's a super cool song. It feels like a freight train ready to go off the rails, but it manages to stay on. And again, this just like gear shift thing that they do so well, that whole woman, child of love creation, he drops back down then into this like sort of funky Latin groove or something.
Yeah.
It's crazy, but yeah, it's all about Bill Ward there in the
Oh
beginning
yeah.
there with those big, massive drum fills. So that's my number two, also Symptom of the Universe. All right.
Another thing that's interesting, I want to say one thing about Symptom of the Universe before we move on to our, I guess, our number ones. Or are you okay? So Symptom of the Universe was your number two too. Everybody on Symptom of the Universe puts in a solid, like reaching higher than they have before performance. Ozzy's, his voice, it's like he's straining, he's just like letting it rip. His voice is high, you can hear it in his throat, he's just singing it. It's really emotional. It's like angry, or maybe he's just excited. But so Ozzy's going for it. Love the riff. Of course, I mean, who doesn't love the riff? And if you're a Sabbath fan and you don't love the riff in Symptom of the Universe,
you're not a Sabbath fan.
Something's wrong. Well, something's off. Something's off. But one of the greatest Iommi riffs of all time, right there in Symptom of the Universe. Geezer, I mean, you could hear Geezer. He's active in that. But likewise, Bill Ward, he contributes as well with those fills. If everybody, and I think that probably is what inspires a lot of Bill's performance, is how the other got what they're doing. And I think he even said that, like, my number one, well, I'll get into it when I talk about my number one, but Bill was in an interview and the person asked him about a certain fill pattern that he does in my number one song. And he said, I don't know. I just did it. I listened to what Geezer was doing and I listened to what Tony was doing and I came up with it based on what they were doing. So, I mean, and I think that's probably what happened in Symptom of the Universe when he heard, here's the fill and it's exciting and there's that space and it's like, he's coming off that cool riff and Ozzy, and he's just like, there's excitement about it. And he conveys that excitement that he's feeling with his instrument and in his performance. And that's what he does. And it's really honest and it's pure and it's pretty awesome. So
For sure.
The Universe. So my number one, and I've referenced this song on a lot of occasions in videos and podcasts and stuff for a number of different reasons. Under the Sun. I've talked about it insofar as it's heaviness content, how from 1972 it still rivals anything that's currently coming out as far as heaviness. But as far as a Bill Ward moment, I love the part where it goes into the tempo change, and I think that's subset Every Day Comes and Goes, where it goes double time, and then he does those triplets. And it's incredible. And I think it's on double bass. I think he's using two bass drums. He started using two bass drums on Master of Reality, and he definitely continues. You can definitely notice it, especially on Tomorrow's Dream. You can hear the double kick drums. But he's doing those quadruplets on Every Day Comes and Goes segment of and right on a dime. It's so tight, and every hit is just like, it's even. It's not sloppy at all. And sometimes, Bill, when he goes for it, sometimes it's more about the feeling than it is about the actual execution of it or the precision. But those fills, really precise. I mean, you listen to it, and especially now that we have the advantage of hearing like some of these great versions of remastered versions of these albums, and one of the Rhino versions I have of Volume 4, it's really clear. I listen to it on headphones, or I'll crank it up and I could really hear those drums, and they just sound tight. It's really tight. And the fact that he said, that I just said a few minutes ago, well, the song that he was talking about, the song that the kid asked him about was, what about those fills you do in Under the Sun during the fast part? And that's when he was like, well, I don't know. I just reacted to what the other guys are doing. I just do what I felt I had to do, what I felt inspired to do at that particular point in time. So with that in mind, reacting to it from a reactionary standpoint, to have them so tight and so precise is pretty incredible.
Yeah.
And that to me, I mean, I love the song. I love the heavy quality of the song. I love the outro. I love the main part of the song, but I love the change. You know, the progression when it gets into the fast part. But from the drumming standpoint, that to me is like one of the greatest Bill Ward moments. The fact that he just rolls into that on a dime and does it, and it's like right on point, and then it goes back and
Right.
it goes right back into it again, and it's just as tight and just as precise as the first time he did it. He's
Yeah.
not tired. It's not like, oh, I just went for it in one part. I don't even remember what I was doing because I was lost in the
Yeah.
moment. No, I mean he probably is in the moment, but he's in the moment, but his head's still involved in it too. So yeah, it's pretty incredible. So
Great
my
pick.
number one Bill Ward song, Under the Sun.
Great pick. Yeah, for sure. Those fills that you're talking about are some of his best there. Okay, my number one is War Pigs. And I picked that because there's so many spots in that song. It has maybe the most famous open hi-hat hit in the world. That's
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
that when that comes up in concert, you can almost hear people singing along with that.
Hmm.
Those fills that he does, like, oh Lord, yeah, da da go 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 da da da
Yeah,
da 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 do 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 da da. You almost sing along with those. Those are almost like part of the song. When it goes into the guitar solo and they're jamming again, it's just you're talking about in the moment things. That guitar solo right there just feels to me like them in the moment. Bill's just, you know, just
yeah,
in there. There's just in there's a chemistry. There's some sort of connection between those guys. Maybe it's because they grew up together. They came from the same place. There's just a connection with them that has never been duplicated in any other combination of the band. It's something that only happens when those four guys are together. But the ultimate moment here, and maybe my favorite Bill Ward drum, those drum fills in Under the Sun. Yeah, those if we were talking about top 5 drum fills, those would be in there. But the drum fill he plays to set up the end section, the bomb, 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 right before that, when he does it, bomb, 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 bomb,
yeah, yeah,
that is just such a killer drum fill. And it just totally like, it's like everything hangs in the air for a second and he's doing this big fill and it just boom, boom, boom. He just totally sets up that epic ending. One of my favorite, like, you know, song endings of all time, if you want to call it that, you know, that whole
yeah,
outro section of War Pigs and the way he sets that up with that big massive drum fill is just incredible to me. And if you were in a room full of metalheads and that song came on, people would be singing the drum fills and those, you know, ba da da
mhm,
da 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 da, you know,
yeah,
you almost know it like the lyrics in the song. They are an integral part of the song, to the point where if I'm somewhere and I hear somebody play that song and they try to play something nutty or totally that
yeah,
doesn't fit there, it just doesn't, you know, but you know, no, it just sounds
yeah,
ridiculous. You know, you're hearing those drum fills in your
yeah,
head, and there's not many songs where I can think of where it's like, you know, the drum fills are as integral to the song as like the riffs and stuff like
yeah.
that. They're like part of the song. So
You're absolutely
that's
right. I mean, yeah, I mean, I've seen bands play a cover of War Pigs, and it's cool when a band will do a cover and they'll make it their own. They'll elaborate on it, and no, I support that. I think if you're gonna do a cover song, you know, put a little bit of ingenuity into it. Give it a reason. Make there a reason why you're doing it. You know, if you because otherwise, if you're just playing it faithfully, it's what's the point? I mean, we can listen to the original version, but War Pigs is one of those songs where I mean, I can definitely give a band credit for taking liberties on some of the aspects of the song, maybe a difference in guitar tone. All right, okay, I can live with that, I guess. I'm not really into it, but I won't get too critical about it. I won't be too disappointed if I hear a different type of guitar tone. But if I don't hear those fills the way that I'm used to hearing them, the way the Bill Ward does them, it's off. It's like diet soda. It doesn't taste right. It's like, nah, not working for me. I mean, so if you're gonna play War Pigs, I mean, you could take liberties on a few different things. You can't take liberties on that hi hat, that open hi hat thing though.
Yeah.
That has to be on point. But likewise, so did the fills, or at least some of the more important fills. But yeah, I mean, the other thing is that on that song and a lot of the songs that we've talked about, it's like he's working hard, but it's like a labor of love.
Mhm.
There's a lot of times in songs, and he's pushing it to the nth degree. He's doing more than he really needs to do, but he's doing it because he wants to, because he's that involved with the
Yeah,
music.
he's
He's
that
feeling it.
engaged in
And
it.
I mean, who can't help but like a song that the musicians are obviously putting themselves into? I mean, they're selling it, I'm buying it. If
Yeah.
you're not selling it, I mean, and if you're not
What's the
you're
point?
not owning that shit. I mean, if you're not really like putting your heart and soul into it, it's going to make me think, well, should I even like this? But um, been a lot of moments with Bill Ward's performances, especially on these songs and your top five and my top five. I mean, he's going above and beyond what he actually needs to do, and you can tell that it's labor of love. Totally appreciate that. I love that.
Yeah, and Iron Man almost made my list for the same reason. That's got some drum fills in it too that are almost as iconic drum fills to the song and the way they set up the different sections and everything. So, okay, there you go. There's Darren and I picks for our 5 most memorable Bill Ward moments. Let us know what you think of our picks. Let us know what some of your picks are down in the comments. Make sure you check out our podcast, Into the Void, a Black Sabbath podcast. I'll leave a link to that below in the description. And until we see you again, make sure you stay heavy, stay metal.